Ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, please. Thank you very much. I've brought this up here in case I need it. Okay, do you get the general idea, gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen, time to start the main event for the afternoon, and that is the great infrastructure debate. I won't keep wearing that the whole time because my hand's starting to get a bit sweaty, as you know, as you do in these things. Ladies and gentlemen, time to start our great debate. Please welcome the first of our guests today, who will be on my right, in keeping with Parliamentary Westminster Convention, being the Speaker, so to speak. I will ask Corey Wingard, the Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, Recreation, Sport and Racing, please to come to the stage. Welcome, Minister. Also, please make welcome to the stage Tom Koutsantonis, MP, Shadow Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, Mining and Energy, Government Accountability, and Leader of Opposition Business in the House of Assembly. A round of applause for both contestants. Now, as we know, infrastructure and especially transport touches each and every one of us in this state. It'll be brought into sharper focus with voters being put to the test in March. We've seen a state budget several weeks ago now, today, and two people at the pointy end of knowing the true picture, and I'd like to say where the skeletons are hidden. Today's debate will be following a very strict format. Each speaker, starting with the Minister, will have 5 minutes to outline their visions going forward, with Corey going first. And I'll refer to them first name basis. We'll forget the formalities about ministers and shadow ministers and Christ knows what. Then we'll have a brief opportunity, 3 minutes of each of them to rebut what the other has said, just in keeping with conventions of debating. I'll then ask questions for 25 minutes. I'll jump on any issues which are just anyone repeating any motherhood statements they've already made in their opening address. So we want really answers to questions, not just going back to their first flowery touch, shall I say. Then there'll be 15 minutes for questions from the floor. We've got roving microphones. Just state your name, where you're from, and a very quick question, please. One question each. Then each speaker will be given 2 minutes to sum up their positions, and each of them will be given one opportunity to ask the other one a simple question. So I think that they are the rules, and we'll start. We'll get the clock ticking right now. Please start, Minister.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much, and great to see so many people in the room. Can I start by thanking Rebecca and the CCF for putting on this function? As Mike mentioned, this was meant to happen back during the budget, of course, but COVID's put us into some interesting times here in South Australia. But I do want to thank the industry as well for the way they have responded to this. You'll remember back when COVID first hit, and we got some stimulus money, $144.5 million for projects to keep people working, to keep businesses ticking over, and the civil industry specifically stepped right up to deliver those projects. I want to thank them very much for that. It's greatly appreciated. In that time, I've had a number of round tables with the industry as well, talking about projects, and I remember at one stage sitting down with the industry saying, if we can get more projects, can you deliver them? Because we know that projects, infrastructure projects, transport infrastructure projects are vitally important, and they generate jobs. They put food on the table for families at home, and we know that's important. That's why that figure Rebecca mentioned, and Mike says I can't mention it too many times, but it is a $17.9 billion infrastructure spend. $8.8 billion of that on transport infrastructure and road infrastructure as well. It's a bigger spend than this state's ever seen. I know it's some $5 million more than the Labor Party ever put into an infrastructure spend here in South Australia. So it is vital. But when I spoke to industry at one of those round tables, I said, if we get more money and more projects, can you deliver? And industry, to a person, nodded around that table and said, yes, we can. And again, I thank the CCF for facilitating that and working with us on that. So it is exciting. It's exciting to be delivering those projects that I outlined. $1.6 billion last year, more than $2 billion in projects going out this year as well in transport and road infrastructure projects. And you see them right across the state. In regional South Australia, building the roads that are vitally important to get goods to market, to improve our state's productivity, and also to make up for the shortfall, the road maintenance backlog. So that sort of spend, that $17.9 billion, it rounds out to some 19,000 jobs, maybe a few more over that journey. And those jobs, as I said, are vitally important for the people of South Australia, and you as an industry are delivering those, which is greatly appreciated. We have had, and I mentioned regional roads because they have been neglected for a long period of time, $2.8 billion going into regional roads, and we know how important that is. If you are driving through our regions, Tom, it's just north of Jepps Cross, you'll actually get out there and you'll see the work that needs to be done, and it is incredibly important. In the Metro Adelaide, of course, busting congestion, vitally important too. A number of intersections that were actually rolling on with. Goodwood Springback Doors is going incredibly well. Portrush, McGill, right across the state, we're doing these projects as well, whether it's in Metropolitan Adelaide or in the regions. That's the short term, and that's where a lot of the work is happening now, and again, the industry stepped up. This is a short, medium and long-term vision, and we've rolled this out to industry, and we're very proud about it. The medium term, that hinges around a number of the planning studies that we've got in train, some $32 million of planning studies that are out there. Again, looking at projects right across the state. We know the Greater Adelaide Freight Bypass was announced in the federal budget, and we matched it in the state budget as well to get heavy vehicles off the southeastern freeway, get them around the back of Murray Bridge and around onto the Northern Connector that way, taking that heavy freight load and diverting it around there. We've already invested $12 million into widening that road, reinforcing bridges and doing some work there. In the budget, of course, $200 million for the Truro Bypass, which is a key part of that project. So that's rolling out really, really well, and those planning studies are taking place. Of course, key corridors as well across the city, $10 million's going into that. Portrush, Unley Road, Brighton Road, a number of key projects here, key corridors that we're doing those planning studies to get that work lined up. So again, in the medium term, we've got those projects that we can be rolling out across our state, and we're identifying those. Then the longer term, the Infrastructure Australia list, and you would have seen that, more projects on the Infrastructure Australia list at its last iteration than we've ever seen before, and we're very, very proud of that as well. Working hand in glove with the federal government, looking at those projects. I mentioned road maintenance, sadly that sits there, and it's work that needs to be done. It's not sexy, but it's vital work, and people in this room deliver that vital work for us here in South Australia. Grade separations, again, putting a strategy and a plan in place to identify the key grade separations that we can attack over the next 10 years is a key body of work that we're doing as well. The high productivity freight network, I mentioned that Greater Adelaide Freight Bypass, we're doing work there, still working with the federal government on a bigger PBS level 4, those big A-triple road trains, getting them right across our state to improve productivity for industry as well, and working on delivering those road projects as well. And the outer ring route is also on that Infrastructure Australia list. So some really important work, and we know these works, in particular in the regions. We know that shoulder sealing, audio tactile line marking, making our roads safer, doing this work will reduce road safety, or improve road safety, I should say, reduce accidents on our roads. Plenty more to talk about with the North-South corridor and what we're doing with industry as well, but the bell's stopped and I can keep swinging.
Oh, well, good on you, Corey. Thank you for that and playing by the rules. Tom Koutsantonis.
Rebuttal or opening statement?
No, I'd like you to start with your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge first and foremost the CCF for holding this event and what they've been through to get here. My phone is off, Rebecca, so there's no cartons of beer. I want to thank Mike for hosting today, and of course Corey for turning up. I think that is very, very important. Now, there won't be any partisan bickering today about infrastructure. The truth is this, is that both political parties accept that infrastructure is the key to growing our economy, and you are the tip of the spear of that economic growth. There is no more Stephen Marshall saying that infrastructure spending is a false economy. There are no more political parties going to an election campaign promising to cancel a vital section of the North-South corridor. Those days are now behind us. Our political opponents are now on board with infrastructure spending. And I think that has to be applauded. But you need more than them just being on board. You need competence, consistency, transparency, and advocacy. Industries are in a lottery with the ministers that they get. Sometimes you get a minister who is your advocate to the cabinet. Sometimes you get a minister who is the cabinet's advocate to you. And the differences are stark. And when that happens to an industry, you get problems. Although, I will say this, cheerleading has its role. It's important to go out and spruik infrastructure, as Corey does. It's important to go out and convince South Australians that spending their hard-earned money on infrastructure is vital, because it is. But we are reaching levels that I think are becoming quite dire. And we need to start talking about this and have a conversation about this, because the impact is going to be on your industry. The question you have to ask yourself is, who can get more out of a cabinet going forward? Now, every year, in every budget in recent memory, every minister has boasted this is a record infrastructure spend. And it's true. It's been true for about a decade. Every year we spend more and more on infrastructure because we know it delivers for our economy, it delivers growth, jobs, it delivers capability, especially when we get local procurement right and local contractors get those jobs. But in Labor's last term of office, most of the projects that Corey just rattled off were stuff that were initiated by us. Torrens to Torrens, Darlington, Northern Connector, Springback Road. All these projects, while being delivered and completed in this term, were initiated some other time. Now we're being told to wait for the big ones that are coming. Big ones that are coming are very, very large. The North-South Corridor, $9.8 billion. Women's and Children's Hospital, $1.95 billion. And of course, the anticipated brand new basketball stadium, $666 million. Now, the North-South Corridor alone, just 3 months ago, was set to cost just over $8 billion. The government added a lane in each direction, which added about $1 billion worth of cost. Those of you paying attention would have noticed that the Westgate Tunnel blew out by $3.5 billion. Some people are saying it's nearly $5 billion in terms of a blowout. Now, all three of these projects are set to begin in the next term. And the money for these projects isn't in the budget. Not all of it, not to completion. Now, let's leave that for a second. I want to give you some numbers, just so you can contemplate our ability to keep on spending on infrastructure. Our interest bill this year on our debt alone is over $500 million. By 2024, our interest bill on our debt will be $984 million. And the Treasury forecast that if interest rates increase by 1%, our interest rate cost goes up by $250 million per year. So you better hope interest rates stay where they are, because right now, wages growth in the United States is skyrocketing. We're seeing the cost of goods here in South Australia go up. Inflation is starting to kick up. We know what the response to high inflation is, increasing interest rates. Now, those debt repayments are set without the money for the North-South Corridor, for the Women's and Children's Hospital, and the basketball stadium. And the question that we have to ask ourselves in this room is, can this minister convince this cabinet, if they're re-elected, keep on spending on infrastructure? Or you better hope you're the lead contractor building the tunnels. Now, how many South Australian headquartered companies have built tunnels before? At the length and depth and breadth they're talking about the North-South Corridor. I think we all know that the North-South Corridor, its final cost, one, isn't going to be $9.9 billion. It's going to be more than that. And two, I think we all suspect what's really going on is that this is a Sydney-centric department that is going to choose probably an Eastern Seaboard contractor to deliver these tunnels. You need a piece of that, let alone the other project.
Tom, we'll just, in terms of time, thank you for that. Is there anything you would like to question the Minister on his facts and figures in his own opening statement?
I think on his facts and figures, I mean, there's no one disagreeing that infrastructure is the right thing to be doing right now, especially during COVID. We both agree on that. I mean, this year we're spending $2.1 billion on infrastructure alone. But there's a problem. In 2024, that drops in terms of transport and infrastructure to $488 million. That's half our interest bill on the debt we have today. We'll be spending less on infrastructure and more on interest repayments. So where is the next lot of infrastructure investment going to come from? Because it seems to me all of our eggs are in the one basket, the North-South Corridor, let alone the Women's and Children's Hospital, let alone the basketball folly.
Corey, you've heard from the Shadow Minister here. I'm not sure if I heard a great vision there myself. Is there anything you would like to,
No, that was
to
actually,
contradict?
That was actually my point. I didn't hear Tom mention one project or one new project that Labor are going to be picking up on. He did talk about the projects that we are rolling out, and he's right, the North-South Corridor, huge project, vitally important to this state. And again, we do want to work with all tiers of contractors, and we see this as a vitally important piece of infrastructure for South Australia. Not only one just to build, but two for what it will mean for South Australia. We can also talk about the women's and children's, again, a pipeline of work that we've talked with the CCF about regularly. And then we can talk about the new arena. Again, Tom wants to talk it down. We know rock concerts and these sorts of events that fly straight over South Australia when we were a small city under a Labor government is not where we want to be. We think we have a bigger vision for that, and we think being able to have those big events, those big conferences that do, again, bypass South Australia, we know the money that puts into the economy. We have a vision, we have a plan, we're rolling it out. Tom has not mentioned one project, and that's sad because that's the South Australia that I think Labor want to have in this state. What we want to do is put the planning in place, though, make sure that planning work is there so that we have a pipeline of projects. I talk about the planning studies that we're looking at and addressing, so we can then do that work, identify, so that when we go to market and when we go to contractors to do this, that planning work is done. We know, again, under Labor, they would put out projects for tender with 5% of that work done, 5% of that work done, and then they go and ask someone to contract for it. Now, that just makes it hard for industry to actually get that scope and put that price on it. And then when more of that planning and design work is done, things change quite dramatically, and it does make a mess to the contract. So our vision is very clear. I didn't hear Tom mention one project.
Corey, Tom did mention one very pertinent factor, and it's in the CCF, in their Digging Deep paper, focus on locals having a fair go in jobs. Now, as Tom brought up, the North-South Tunnel, we don't dig tunnels in this state, or we don't dig, not of that magnitude. What is the commitment that you will give to people in this room that all future work such as that, they will at least get a fair go, or even better than a fair go?
Yeah, and that's something that we have been doing, and again, working very closely with Rebecca and the industry to make sure that we're giving all contractors a go across a number of jobs. The alliance projects we're doing, again, putting stipulations in place where they have to use local contractors and get tier 1s, tier 2s and tier 3s into these projects of this scale. And to say we haven't done tunnels before should not be a reason to say we don't do tunnels into the future. This is the way of the world. We want to get South Australian companies involved in this, and I think the department has been working very hard to make sure all tiers of contractors are involved in projects. I mentioned the alliance model and working through with models like that whereby everyone can get a slice of the pie.
To what degree, though? What percentage of the work would you like to see?
Oh, look, I can't put a percentage on it. We want to see, it depends who's out there and what people can do, but we want to make sure we're involved and engaged with everyone in this room so that they can be a part of it and take them on that journey. So, and when we talk about the scope of this project too, the money we're talking about, the $9.9 billion, just the early works we've done, the enabling works, there's been an $85 million contract worth of contracts have gone out just in the last month or so. The establishment works is a $350 million contract before we get started. That's the amount of work that's going out into the sector just to prepare for this. So the early works are bigger than the Regency, the PIN project that we've just completed. So the opportunities are immense. We've talked about collaboration with the industry. That's exactly what we want to do because we want to lift the industry up and grow the industry.
Thanks, Corey. Tom, now, I didn't hear a specific figure there. Are you prepared to give one that a Labor government next March, for instance, on our biggest project ever, are you prepared to set in stone what percentage of work you would direct the winning contractor to award locally?
Well, that's the point. We want to be announcing a procurement policy before the lead up to the election. We'll be announcing all of our policies in the lead up to the election. I look forward to speaking with the CCF about our procurement policies in the lead up to the election. I want to give you two examples of procurement, Corey Wingard style. First one is the Gawler electrification. The Gawler electrification now has been delayed to a date sometime in the first quarter next year. We don't know when. Why? Because apparently COVID lockdown saw all the interstate contractors leave. So apparently this local procurement strategy that the Minister has is so effective that the Gawler electrification now is stalled because most of the contractors who are working on that are interstate. I'll give you another example. I see Stephen Young sitting here in the audience. He's got a factory at Whyalla that fabricates steel. SA Water is replacing their pipeline from Adelaide all the way to the steelworks in Whyalla. They're using steel and cement piping above ground. You know where we're getting that piping from? Western Australia. What, we can't make our own piping here, Minister? We can't make our own cement here? Of course we can. Look, there's another example of local procurement just being swept under the carpet, hoping no one will notice. And these are multi-million-dollar projects that could be sustaining jobs and capability here in South Australia.
Well, Tom, just on that point, you talk about the electrification of the Gawler rail line. I can't remember you guys doing a stellar job on that either.
Well, I disagree. I disagree. We had Tony Abbott get elected and cut the funding to it. The same guy who closed Holden, who now says he regrets it all. I mean, this is the problem we had. We had a Commonwealth government that was prepared to cut funding to South Australia. And we saw it again with Regency to PIM. That was delayed deliberately to try and change the management of their debt structure across the forward estimate. So what that meant for us was that project got delayed. That was ready to go. We could have kept on going through torrents and torrents and kept people employed. And we should have started those South Road tunnels this term, not sometime in the next term. We should have started work on those tunnels by now. It's just unfathomable that we haven't. It's a wasted opportunity.
Corey, the record spend, and I was there on budget day, and that was the standout headline of the entire budget, what we're spending on infrastructure. But is this just desperate measures for desperate times? Because I think everyone in this room, including myself, wonders whether our kids are going to be burdened with that debt. Is it a, look at us, aren't we doing a good job at this point? And, you know, bugger the future, we'll pay it off when we get round to it?
No, these are vitally important infrastructure projects. And just to pick some up there, the Gawler electrification, the contract that was signed, I think, 1 minute to midnight ahead of the last election so that they could say they were doing something. Yet when we actually unpacked that contract, because the planning works weren't done, we find out there are loopholes in there like you wouldn't believe, and we've had to fix up the mess that Labor left. But hey, there's no surprise with that. We are getting on with delivering that project. And again, as Tom didn't point out, but the electrification of that project, there's only 2 of them, I'm told, in the country, one in Queensland, one here. Some of the experts we had to bring in to do that. And again, they should know because they did the first stage and we're emulating the first stage of the electrification project. We've had to bring people in from interstate to do that. Now, through COVID, yes, there has been a setback and that will push the project back a couple of months. We've been up front, come out and explain that. But this is where, again, the planning is so important. He says, the tunnels for the North-South corridor should have started in this term of government. That's fine if the planning work had been done. Tom wanted to do open cut, putting a chasm through South Road, which would have devastated our communities. We've had a look at it, been able to save a number of properties and go with a hybrid plus solution for this. But again, the planning works have to be done. In doing that planning works, we're also upgrading the MassDem system, which is the modelling system. And yes, we did find out that 3 lanes is actually the preferred solution there to the 2 lanes. So there was a change in scope of that project as we're planning it out. But that's what good planning determines. And we're doing that planning work and we'll continue to do that. Because if you plan the projects and you can get them to market, market knows what they're delivering against. And I think that is the absolute right way forward. And I've talked about the medium and the longer term as well, and those projects are there to continue rolling out for our state.
And you're not worried about future debt?
No, I think where we sit at the moment is in the right spot. We have to be delivering this. We have to be delivering these projects for South Australia. COVID is putting us in a very, very unusual situation, to say the least, from a health perspective and also from an economic perspective. We need to keep industry ticking over. We need to keep delivering these projects. I do allude back to the situation we're left in as far as one of our Infrastructure Australia priorities. And this is, again, where us partnering with the federal government and working with the federal government to deliver solutions so that industry can see a clear pathway, but we can deliver against that clear pathway. And one of the things they've identified and are supportive on us doing the planning works for are our road maintenance backlog. We were left with a $750 million road maintenance backlog in metropolitan Adelaide and also in the regions as well. And if you do get out and drive our regions, you know our roads are in a very, very ordinary state. We are doing a lot of that work now and we've got more of that to do, and that's something Infrastructure Australia have identified with us. So yes, these are important works and we need to be doing them right across the board in unison with industry.
Corey, we'll stick with you.
Please.
GlobeLink. Should we stop laughing now or should we just say, what a disaster? Why did you even promise that before the last election? Blind Freddie could see that it was pie in the sky stuff. And now you get up here and try and be credible about future spending.
Yeah, again, from opposition, that was what we looked at. We had a look at that project and we said we'd put the business case forward. We went and did that work. When you do the planning works and you actually look at the business case, it didn't stack up. We've declared that and we've put that forward.
Everyone was telling you that from the word go.
Yep, but let's do the business case and let's find out for sure. And we did that work. And again, I think in this room, you know that if you do the planning work, you actually find out what will work, what won't work, and you can move ahead from there. We do know and we do have that plan to get those heavy vehicles and that heavy freight off the Southeastern Freeway. Vehicles will still use the Southeastern Freeway. We know that trucks will still use it. They have to get goods to market and goods to port and goods to businesses.
So you've got a plan B?
But again, I've outlined that, the Greater Adelaide Freight Bypass, it was in the budget. I'm very happy to take you through it. But what we do want to do, and we've started doing that work by widening that road, getting off around the back of Murray Bridge, taking those big PBS level 4, the big A triple trucks around the back of Murray Bridge and hooking them into the Northern Connector and then taking them off to the west and off to the north. And again, this is a project, it's on the Infrastructure Australia priority list as well, working with the feds. That's something that they want to develop as well, is a PBS level 4 road network right across Australia. And we're very much part of that. So this is a project, and we committed $200+ million to the Truro Bypass, which is a big piece in that puzzle at the last election, and we'll continue to work on that and deliver that for South Australia.
Tom, how would you describe Globelink?
A lie, an out-and-out lie. A lie that was told to you at the last election to try and win votes. The idea that we would dig up the freight line that we had just spent $800 million upgrading through Torrens and Goodwood Junction, trying to have a rail line bypassing, what was the terminology? Sweeping through the Adelaide Hills around the back with a 24-hour freight-only airport. It was rubbish from start to finish. And it was all designed to try and win seats in the Adelaide Hills against Nick Xenophon. And what we saw then was $20 million allocated for a business plan, and that business plan came back and told us what we all knew. It doesn't stack up. Now, in terms of the North-South corridor, in terms of planning, they don't even have a business case finished yet for the tunnels. We don't even know what the cost-benefit ratio is for every dollar we invest. What do we get back from those tunnels? We don't know any of that yet. Yet we're being told they're doing the planning. Look, the last Labor government had its faults, no doubt. We weren't perfect. If we were perfect, we would have been re-elected. But the one thing you couldn't criticise us on, I think fairly, was our commitment to infrastructure. Look where we're sitting. I mean, look at the infrastructure that changed across Adelaide. From the very beginning in 2002, deepening the harbour at Port Adelaide, Port River Expressway, South Road Superway, the Northern Expressway, the Northern Connector, Darlington, Torrens to Torrens. You can go on and on and on. Truth is, over this period, last 4 years of government, all we've heard is talk. Where are the big infrastructure projects? We're being told to wait until 2023 after the election. Now, quite frankly, given Globelink, I don't trust them. I don't trust them. And I don't trust them to award the contract predominantly to South Australian contractors. And demonising freight doesn't get you more money from Canberra. The reason we have the Southeastern Freeway with those tunnels that go through the Adelaide Hills is because of freight. Freight attracts Commonwealth money. Freight attracts investment. We need a non-stop north-south corridor to build jobs, to build our economy, yet it's been delayed another 4 years. Why? Why didn't we keep on building? And the excuse is just planning. I think that is just a terrible excuse. All it's about is trying to manage their debt profile. And the problem I think we have now is that they are putting all their eggs into this one basket, and unless you are the successful contractor on that north-south corridor, you're going to go through feast and then famine for a long time. We need to manage these contracts properly, and I haven't seen any example of that. If you want an example of a contract going badly, look at Hove. Look at the Hove crossing. $170 million. That was promised in 2017, committed by this government. They couldn't even get the argument up in his own community about that project.
Tom, just interrupting there, only from a time point of view, Hove Crossing wasn't your finest hour, was it?
Look, Hove Crossing was one of those projects, again, we came into government, we had a look at that, the department said, here's a project that you can go ahead with. We partnered with the federal government, $171 million, but then we did the planning works. Well, we do the planning works because they'd done nothing. They'd done nothing, committed to it and wouldn't have been able to deliver it on the monies that they were talking about.
But we've still got nothing.
But if I can, We actually did the work, we did the engineering work and found out it's going to cost $450 million. Changes the landscape immensely. And not to mention, the gentleman to my left who was standing there holding placards willing the project away, I mean, that's a really, really fine work. He was out there antagonising with the best of them, started a Facebook page, Say No to Hove Crossing, and he's here today saying he supported the project. It's quite laughable. But that's the way he operates, and look, politics is his specialty. Politics doesn't deliver any projects. We're here investing, we're here delivering projects for South Australia.
All right, let's just jump back to Tom for a minute. I think somewhat patronisingly you refer to an infrastructure project in the city as a basketball stadium.
Yes.
And you know full well that it is more than that. Did you watch the Olympics? Basketball actually isn't,
I did. I watched the Boomers.
It is the flavour of the month.
Well, then,
why do you keep referring to it as a basketball stadium? Because you don't want it to go ahead, you're willing it to fail.
No, we've committed that if we are elected, we won't be going ahead with the basketball stadium. We'll be investing $100 million of that capital initially into country hospitals. Now, that's civil works that a lot of people in this room can get access to. Now, we're going to be announcing how we'll be spending the remaining $500 million of that capital as we lead up to the election. It's a basketball stadium. Do you know why it's a basketball stadium? So that's what the Premier called it. On the day he announced it, a year out from the election, he talked about it being a basketball stadium. That was its use.
I think he may have said it would do more than just be play host to basketball.
It was
but
also,
why do you just keep? Why don't you call it what it is? It is a stadium. It isn't just basketball. It's a convention facility as well. It's an auditorium.
Yes, we have built many convention centres. We have built many stadia. The question is, do we need another one? And the question is, given what's going on in our hospitals right now with ramping, do you want your loved ones waiting in an ambulance or even worse, a taxi to see a doctor while we're building a $660 million basketball stadium?
All right, I'll throw that over to Corey. Is it the best spend of money? Look, and do you think people in this room would think, hey, if we've got a finite amount, let's do something else?
I just need to start with transforming health. Come on, give me a break. That was the mess we were left with our hospital system after Labor went through transforming health. Was absolutely diabolical. We're going about fixing that. We're putting more emergency beds in. We are delivering infrastructure spend on hospitals. When it comes to our state, we've got a bigger vision. We don't want to take South Australia back to what it used to be under Labor. And we need the full complement. That's why the North-South Corridor, vitally important project, looking after our regions as well. I've mentioned that as far as road infrastructure is concerned there, and then having that pipeline of works. Also, investing in things like the arena, and I've talked about that. We know here in South Australia, for generations, we've been looked over. Concerts have literally flown over our head and gone to Western Australia. We have an opportunity to put a venue in place that will attract and keep young people here. The world is looking at South Australia now like it never has before because of COVID-19. This is a place, a venue and a location that people want to be because it's safe and it's secure, and we have got a great offering here. But we need to have the full gamut. We can't just be little old Adelaide. We need to be a bigger city with more to offer. That's why we're investing in infrastructure that makes us a big city, and having an arena and a complex like that to attract those sorts of events, to attract big conferences as well. We know the Land 400 conference, when we went looking for that, weren't interested in coming to South Australia because we didn't have a venue big enough. These are the sorts of things we need to be delivering. Along with the Women's and Children's Hospital, there is a very important pipeline of work. We have a vision, haven't heard one thing from Tom.
Okay, let's throw it open to the floor. I think we have some roving microphones. Perhaps the people with the microphones hold them up so we can see. Yes, down the back there, at the back corners. Stick your hand up, jump up. Yes, Stephen Young. This will be good. No, there's one right behind you.
Sing and dance.
Thank you. Everything's got to be held for me for COVID reasons. First of all, infrastructure spending is good. One of the things I wanted to ask you is the top 5 Tier 1 prime contractors in Australia are all foreign owned. Is it possible for you to create a structure when you're letting work out in South Australia that means that South Australian companies are forced or invited to partner with the Tier 1s so they can be directly involved in the delivery of the contracts? And just to help you understand what the problem is, $9 billion worth of work is far, far bigger than anyone in South Australia can do. The $9 billion needs to be 9 lots of $1 billion, and then maybe a South Australian company could get 30% of that billion. Have you guys thought that through, and can you provide a response to my question?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Start with Corey.
Thank you. Yeah, really great question. And what we are working with, I mentioned the alliance models that we've been working with, and have the department very focused with industry and dealing with Beck and talking about this. That's exactly what we want to find pathways for. Not only that, pathways that we can grow Tier 3 businesses into Tier 2 businesses, Tier 2 businesses into Tier 1 businesses. That's where this investment is really, really important, and giving those opportunities where we're not overstretching businesses and putting them in a precarious position, but giving them opportunities to stretch and grow, and that's why we're investing in this space. So the short answer is yes, and we want to work with industry and the CCF to help deliver that.
Tom, commitments here?
Well, I just remember the submarine contract when everyone said that someone else could build it cheaper and faster. We wanted the capability here. The question is, do we want these contracts to remain here in South Australia, employing South Australians? That's the point. What's the use otherwise of building the infrastructure just to employ people from other states? The infrastructure has its benefit, but so does the capability. The question that I want to know from the government, and we'll be announcing our procurement policy, is why can't we guarantee that these projects will remain here, and we have South Australian consortiums doing this, with the government involved as a partner? But apparently that's all too hard, and the government now and the department all do design and construct contracts. They just go out to the market, they try and de-risk everything they can and don't want to be involved. So the large multinationals are the ones that get the contracts. We transfer all of the state risk onto them, and then we say to them, you charge what you can afterwards to local South Australian contractors to do the rest of the work. And that's unfair. That model is not going to get you growth and capability in South Australia. We need to do better. I agree.
Okay, another question. Don't be shy. Yes. Oh, sorry. We'll go down the front here and to the lady over there. You might need... Oh, no, there's a microphone there. Under COVID rules, the ladies have to hold the microphone.
Thanks, Mike. Andrew Wilson. Minister Wingard, you're talking about rock bands coming in this new basketball stadium / arena, but surely the only people who can reach out of that are promoters and people like Pearl Jam. What about the event that we did have, which is the Clipsal, which has this massive trickle-down effect?
So you're saying about the building of the stadium and what?
Don't worry about the stadium, just bring the Clipsal back. If you're worried about people flying over South Australia, they're going to come, and rock bands are going to come and we're going to see them, but that doesn't really, we might get a bit of extra accommodation and things like that, but where's the trickle-down effect from a rock concert rather than having the Clipsal year on year?
Yeah, and you're right. As far as having those concerts and having them here in South Australia, there is a great economic uplift for that. It's when people come and stay in the city, and having it in the city, we know since the football stadium moved here from West Lakes, having it in the city will mean people will come over from interstate, they'll come to those concerts, they'll come here like we go interstate because we don't get those concerts here. So there's a massive economic boom. And they'll come here and they'll stay a few nights, they'll go to the wineries, they'll put a whole package together, and that will be week on week, month on month, we'll be able to attract those events here to South Australia as opposed to just once a year. Equal to the 500, of course, we are still having the event up at the Bend. I'm not sure if you've been there recently, but again, a great facility that private companies have invested money in, and that is a really, really good facility for motorsport. I've been involved in motorsport for a long, long period of time, and to see a facility like that purpose-built here in South Australia is absolutely outstanding. So we're going to be able to have our cake and eat it too.
Thomas, is it going to be a defining election moment, the Adelaide 500?
Absolutely. Absolutely will be. And the Minister and the Premier will have to explain to South Australians why they cancelled the only event in South Australia every year that sold out every single hotel room in South Australia and replaced it with what? Bloom. Events that are already there. They're claiming the Royal Show as a replacement for the Clipsal. I mean, this is getting pathetic.
But is the horse bolted in terms of the assets that may have been sold off already, that if you're starting again from scratch, this just digs a deeper hole?
Well, I have to say it's a good investment. It returns a great investment for South Australia. The cost-benefit ratio on the race is a no-brainer. Cancelling it is the crazy thing to do. Cancelling it was a mistake.
So why did they cancel it? Why did this mob cancel it?
To save $15 million per year.
Why did you cancel it?
Again, we want to spread the events out right across the year. We talk about having the arena and having events. Instead of just having everything happen in March, and again, I think the hotels you'll find without Clipsal this year were very, very full during March. We want to actually spread that right across the year. Let's not just be a 1-month wonder. Let's be a 12-month wonder. Let's be a bigger city with a bigger vision. having concerts and being able to use the arena will add bucket loads to South Australia and attract plenty here to this state. And again, we have got a great facility up there at the Bend that can keep V8s rolling around. And if you haven't been up there, I very much encourage you to do so because it's a great event.
Okay, moving on. Lady over here.
The training manager for McConnell Dow at Ovingham project. So for creating jobs in South Australia for South Australians, we've got the industry participation policy with the workforce participation KRA. When is South Australian government going to mandate that people in civil construction work here on government projects must have a minimum qualification standard, which would automatically increase our traineeship and apprenticeship engagement?
Really keen on growing the jobs in the sector you're talking about and doing it through in partnership with the Civil Contractors Federation. In fact, Civil Train and the programs that we've put in place there, allowing Civil Train to train up people for this, is something that we're incredibly focused on. We're looking to make sure that we can train up as many people, as many South Australians as possible to get them that work that we're rolling out. So it is
compulsory. It's not compulsory. If we had it, if I want to be an electrician, I've got to do an electrical apprenticeship. If I want to work in the mines, I've got to be qualified at that. When is it? Now, you guys went to the effort of declaring a trade of plant operations and civil workers. When does it become a mandated requirement that if you want to work on those top end of the tree projects, you must be trade qualified? I've got 3 trade apprentices right here who are going to become trade qualified.
And that's absolutely fantastic. We're rolling out more people through that training and making them qualified, and we want to continue to do that. As far as mandating, I'm happy to sit down and talk to the industry about that. Would that have an impact on actually delivering the people that can do the work? I very much understand what you're saying, that people that are trained and are qualified are far better placed to do that work. So yeah, I'm happy to talk to industry about that and sit down and have a chat.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Yes, up the back there.
Thank you. Hi, Andrew Linscott from MEH Hire. I just wanted to, first of all, thanks very much, gentlemen, for your visions on infrastructure spend. It's probably a bit left field my question, but the thing that I wanted to ask you is just a comment, really, and it's about the skill set of the industry and about bringing employment into South Australia. We've got a huge amount of investment going on over the next sort of 4 to 10 years, and I know with my business, I'm finding it difficult to find good people. And I know that when I speak to my customers, they also find it difficult finding good people. Can I just ask for a comment about what your feeling is about how you're going to attract people to South Australia and to this industry as well, please?
Yeah.
Okay, Corey, you go first.
Yeah, so one of the big things are people moving back here to South Australia through COVID and the situation we're in, and we're loving it. We welcome them back. We know about the brain drain that happened for so many years. So there's a great opportunity there, attracting those people as we talked about here, getting them trained up through the Civil Contractors Federation, through Civil Train, some absolutely outstanding opportunities. We want to keep working with industry and doing that. And we want to grow South Australia. That's what we're focused on. So bringing people back, getting them living here in South Australia. And as I say, as people look around the world now, previously you'd look at the Northern Hemisphere, that's where all the action was. Come down to the Southern Hemisphere, the east coast of Australia, Melbourne and Sydney, that's where the action was. Geographically, we were disadvantaged. What's happened through COVID is the world's turned around. No one wants to be in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment. When they come down and look in the Southern Hemisphere, Sydney and Melbourne look a little bit shaky. We are looking like a beacon and people are wanting to come here. So we want to make sure that we're training them up. We want to make sure that we're delivering the projects. We've got the pipeline of work so we can help supply you with the people that can do the work and we can grow this state.
Okay, Tom.
Last month we lost 2,000 jobs in construction. The question we have to ask ourselves, are we want to be a state that imports labour or trains our own labour here? And that's the question I think we fundamentally have to answer. And that'll be a question at the election. We want our kids staying here, having jobs here, having a future here.
You bet.
Is it all about just bringing in overseas trades to try and create more competition for labour at a lower cost? Because they're the two questions we have to answer. We're going to have a comprehensive policy, which again, I think you'll be very impressed with at the election, about industry training and skills. And it goes to your point about mandating certain requirements on projects. Absolutely, it's a good idea to train our workforce. Absolutely, it's a good idea. But what I'm worried about is that it's all about bringing in people from somewhere else to do the work we want for our kids. That is not good enough. Most of the electricians who worked on a BHP expansion site were from the Philippines. And the Commonwealth government lowered their qualification requirements to work on that project. Now, quite frankly, that's unacceptable. We should be training our own students here in these trades, getting them working here on our projects. There are a lot of projects that are going to be growing in South Australia, whether it's through copper, iron ore, mining, oil and gas. But unfortunately, the mindset is always about bringing someone else in to do that work rather than training our people here to do that work. That takes government leadership. And that, I think, is the difference. And anyway, Corey, the Commonwealth Government's ABS stats show that our population is still shrinking. And when you shut the borders, it's pretty hard to leave.
Okay, we're starting to get into wind-up. Tom, is there anything you actually like about Corey?
Yes, I do.
Yes?
I do. I think I like people who like sports. Corey likes sports. Corey's a family man, from what I can tell. I think he's become a grandfather. And we're both born in 1971.
Right.
So that is, I think, 3 things I can say nice about Corey.
Okay, Corey, perhaps you can better that. 4 things you like about him.
No, I can't better that. I will say one though, and that is that I know Tom is a family man with a couple of lovely daughters, and actually I can find a second. I think he cooks a really good lamb on a spit.
Yes,
I've seen some of his pictures of that. So
My practice on you.
Okay,
that would be a specialty.
Well, you have a chance in March. Okay, gentlemen, very quickly, and I mean really quickly, each of you can ask a question of the other. Corey, you start.
Well, we're roughly 6 months to the election, and all I've heard Tom talk about here today are the great infrastructure projects that we're delivering, the planning works that we're doing. I just want to ask, is he committed to delivering on all those projects, and have they got any... I mean, we're 6 months from an election, not one infrastructure policy at all. So are you going to deliver all the projects that we've got out there?
All but, of course, the stadium. And we have announced an infrastructure policy, a $600 million hydrogen strategy to build a brand new generator here in South Australia, a hydrogen electrolyser, and of course try and create a brand new export industry using hydrogen and of course our abundant solar resources. Solar energy is abundant in South Australia, and the government's solution to an oversupply of solar energy is to turn people's solar panels off. We want to increase demand. By increasing demand, we can generate and turn hydrogen, water into hydrogen, and use that in electricity, use it in industry to displace fossil fuels and, of course, lower costs. And my question to Corey is, can you guarantee the people in this room that a majority, just 50% of the $9.9 billion being spent on South Road will go to South Australian contractors?
$17.9 billion is the figure. That's what we're spending on infrastructure, and that will generate jobs for the people of this state. It will generate work for the people in this room. $9.9 billion spend on the North-South corridor is a really big part of that, a vital part of that, and we look forward to engaging with all the contractors in this room to be a part of that. Right. But there's more work to be done before then, and this is the problem. They do not have a vision for South Australia. There is no vision for what we need to be delivering here. We know, and I think I've laid out our plans, our short, our medium and our long-term plan for what we're delivering. There's $8.8 billion worth of work over the next 4 years. And we've got the planning studies, but $32 million worth of planning studies are coming out that medium term, and the IA list is very clear, and we're working with the federal government to deliver against those projects. So there's a pipeline of work, a consistent pipeline of work, not the peaks and troughs that you've been used to for years under the Labor government, but there is a plane of prosperity, and we're looking forward to delivering that for South Australia.
All right, thank you very much. Corey, I tossed a coin earlier. You've both got 2 minutes exactly to give us your best shot, and this could be the last time you speak to such an esteemed audience before Election Day. Tom, you first.
Our debt to revenue ratio in this state right now is about 68%. In 4 years' time, it's going to be 100%. Our revenue to our debt will be 100%. And this government just signed a deal, Scott Morrison, to lower our GST equalisation over the next 10, 15 years by making sure that every state gets the same amount of GST as a floor at 0.7%, which means that we're going to get less GST. So we're going to have less capability to keep on investing in infrastructure because we haven't even borrowed the money for the projects that Corey is talking about. And the question we need to answer as a community is what happens after that? And if you can't answer what happens after that, all you are is a cheerleader for what's going on in 1 year. We need a long strategic plan. to make sure we can afford to keep on building infrastructure, that we don't have famine or feast, that we do have people stay here in the state, we do build our capabilities, and we don't go through those troughs that Corey talks about that he claims occurred under the Labor government, which I just think is not true. And my concern is that while we're all tip and no iceberg here with Corey, what happens in year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6 and year 7 when our ability to manage our debt exceeds our abilities revenue? How do we borrow more? How do we continue to fund infrastructure? And where does that leave you and your employees and your businesses while a Sydney-centric department has given these contracts to their East Coast or multinational mates? We have to be very careful of this. Once in a lifetime opportunity to make sure we get it right. The question you have to ask yourself is who is more committed to delivering this to South Australia? A Labor government with a record of infrastructure spending or Corey Wingard?
Thank you, Tom. Corey, you can have the final say. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mike. It sounds like Tom wants to cut every project that we've started and every project we have in the pipeline. I can't believe someone can be so negative about this state. They don't want to see us grow. They don't want to see us prosper. Well, that's not where we're coming from. We want to be delivering for South Australia. And as I said from the outset, we know how important this sector is. That's why dealing with the Treasurer over the last 2 budgets, getting infrastructure spends that will generate jobs for people in this room and the people that work for them is a very important aspect of what we're delivering. $17.9 billion is a big infrastructure spend, but we know how important it is. We know the capability that will put into this state and the growth it will generate for South Australia. $8.8 billion of that is on road and transport infrastructure, and not just in the city, but in the metropolitan regions as well. I'm not sure the last time Tom went outside of metropolitan Adelaide, but there's a lot of opportunity there for this state. Not only economic growth as far as tourism and also agriculture, mining, and the hydrogen opportunities that we have here in South Australia. But these are the regions that will help deliver it for us. And we need to have the infrastructure that will actually facilitate that for South Australia. That's why that planning is in place, working with Infrastructure Australia. We know when they were in government, all they wanted to do was fight with the federal government. Well, we've changed that dynamic, and we're working with the federal government to get those projects and have that pipeline of projects that will deliver for South Australia. Building the infrastructure that matters to South Australia, building the projects that are important for South Australia, built by South Australian firms that are in this room. I think since we've been in government, we've worked very closely with you. I mentioned those round tables and the conversations that we have. I know, again, on the 4th of September, we'll be sitting down with industry again, talking about the next wave of projects that we are rolling out. We're doing that yearly, I think biannually now, and we want to keep doing that. So we're working closely with industry so they know what's coming, they know what's there, they can prepare and deliver it for the people of South Australia. We're very proud to be doing that, and we want to continue doing that for everyone in this room.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, individually, first, Corey Wingard. And last but not least, Tom Koutsantonis. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm not calling a result, but everyone can make up their own mind. I heard the applause there at the end, and you work it out for yourselves. That's not my job. Gentlemen, thank you very much. You both got into the spirit of it, as I knew you would, and plenty there to mull over between now and March the, what is it, 18th, 20th? What's election day?
Third Saturday in March.
Okay.
19th of March.
All right. I'll make sure I'm on leave that day. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again. Good on you guys. Thank you. No worries. Well, that now concludes the main event. Again, thanks to our Minister and Shadow Minister for their robust debating style, which we see often in Parliament itself. A few things before we wrap up. If you enjoyed today, don't miss the upcoming CCF events. Industry briefing, Supply to Government workshop presented by the Office Industry Advocate and IQMS Australia. That's coming up in 2 days' time, Thursday the 12th of August. Cultural awareness session with Jack Buckskin on the 20th of August. Industry briefing, Cyber Security presented by HDQ Consulting, 24th of August. The Earth Awards on the 17th of September. Tickets will come on sale soon. The AGM and President's Breakfast with guest speaker Christopher Pine on the 7th of October. You won't want to miss that. He won't. So scan the QR code in your menu or visit the website ccfsa.com.au or contact the CCF FSA team for more information. Just before we wrap up, I'd like to ask Mark O'Grady from MC Labor to the stage to pull out 3 business card winners. Up you come, Mark. Jack has the cards there. How you going? Good. I was hoping you'd say that. Now, draw one out. Elliot Newberg. Delta, good on you, Elliot. You win the weekend for 2 at the Stanford Grand, donated by... Oh, right. Okay. Do you want to get a room today, or do you want to leave it till then? Okay. Second. You've got to be very careful when you make jokes like that. Antonio Piscatelli from Sage wins the Rook climb. No, it's the roof climb at Adelaide Oval. And number 3, you can come up and get your prizes, guys. Thank you very much, Mark. And the last person is Mark Pittman from Fife, who wins the bottle of Imperial Measures gin, donated by Imperial Measure Distilling. So good on you guys. Thank you very much for that. Good on you, Mark. Yeah, you can take that. Now, we're almost there. For those who knew about the secret social media promotion, congratulations. And the certificate is coming. They found the boxing gloves and won a bottle of gin. Check out LinkedIn and Instagram if you missed out. And the winner is, thanks, Jack. The winner is Will Darley from Nagara Constructions. Where are you, Will? Well, I'll just hold on to it until he gets here. I'll look after it, don't worry about that. So, stay tuned. Stay tuned. I think he's still working on the tools. Stay tuned on our social picture albums, and social media will be posted over the coming few days. And if you've taken pictures today, please use the hashtag so we can share them. Finally, on behalf of Civil Contractors Federation SA, I'd like to acknowledge and thank again the following organisations for their generous support. MC Labor, thank you, a round of applause. Sage Automation and Tonkin, thank you very much for that. And as I mentioned earlier, if you haven't already done so, please make sure you validate your parking ticket before you leave to get the special parking rate. The validators can be found on the entry table. Thanks again for joining us for today's great infrastructure debate. Better late than never, as they say. So thank you for blocking out today in your diary. I know it has been a bit of a trial for all of us, but anyway, well worth the wait. Sure looks bright in this state. That concludes the event. Have a great afternoon. We're in here till 2:30. You might be able to do a quick deal between now and then. Thank you very much for coming, and have a safe trip home. Thank you.